everyone. Welcome to today's Textile Talk. My name is Lucy Shaken. I'm SAQA's Communications Coordinator and your Textile Talks organizer. I'm tuning in from Philadelphia. It is a beautiful spring day here. See, some of you in the chat have already said hello. We would love to see where you're all tuning in from. Saw people from Detroit, New York, Virginia. So welcome everyone. While I do our brief introductions here, I'm sharing a slideshow of artwork from SAQA's Spotlight auction. Bidding is about to open at 3 o'clock Eastern time today, and bidding runs until April 5th. So as soon as we end our textile talk, please visit the auction, check it out. These are small, one-of-a-kind works of art donated by SAQA members. Bidding is online and open to everyone. The proceeds from this auction help fund SAQA's work to promote the art quilt, including programs like Textile Talks. Even if you don't plan to bid, I encourage you to check out the artwork just for the eye candy and the inspiration. There are almost 400 art quilts included in the auction. This slideshow is going to continue for about a minute while I introduce this week's program, and I'll put the link to the auction in the chat for you all in just a moment. Textile Talks are presented by the International Quilt Museum, Quilt Alliance, Studio Art Quilt Associates, or SAQA, and Surface Design Association. We love bringing you these free programs every week thanks to the support of our sponsors and contributions from viewers like you. If you enjoy Textile Talks, we would love it if you would tell a friend about us, post about us on social media, and consider supporting our work financially with a donation at saqa.com/ttsupport. Some super quick Zoom notes. This is a webinar, so we can't see or hear you, but we can read your comments in the chat. We have live captions provided by the National Captioning Institute. You can turn these on or off by finding the CC or live captions button, which should be at the bottom of your screen on a computer, or if you're on a mobile device, it might be in your settings. Please use the chat for commentary and greetings. We will have time for Q&A at the end of today's program, so please put your questions in that Q&A box. And if you have suggestions for ways we can improve or for topics you would like to see in future Textile Talks, please let us know in the post-event survey. Today's program is We Gather at the Edge, Black Women and Contemporary Quilts. We're talking about an exhibition of works from Dr. Carolyn Mazloomi's collection, which were acquired by the Smithsonian. It's on view until June 22nd at the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. Dr. Mazloomi was our guest last week with a QSOS, that's Quilters Save Our Stories, interview by the Quilt Alliance. If you missed that, I encourage you to check it out on YouTube, and I'm going to put some links in the chat to other interviews that she's done with SAQA and with the Quilt Alliance, both about her collection and her own artwork. We're joined today by exhibition curator Dr. Aleia Brown. She's the David Julian and Virginia Souther Wichard Distinguished Professor in the Humanities at East Carolina University. Aleia M. Brown is an interdisciplinary scholar making interventions in Black women's history, museums, memory, and material culture and digital humanities. Within the academy and beyond it, her work is attentive to the ways that Black women have experimented with different configurations of freedom. Aleia, thanks so much for being here today. If you would turn on your camera and join me on screen.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello.
All right, so good to see you today. Let's go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. All right, before I begin, I would like to take a moment for gratitude. First, thank you to Martha Stillman for extending the invitation to talk about the exhibition We Gather at the Edge, Contemporary Quilts by Black Women, and to talk about Dr. Carolyn Mazloomi and the Women of Color Quilters Network. I do also want to take a moment to thank them. I saw that some of the members of the Women of Color Quilters Network are in the chat, so please say hi to everyone so that they know who you are. And also thank you to Lucy Shaken for facilitating this experience. And of course, many thanks to the vibrant community that participates in the SAQA Textile Talks. Again, my name is Dr. Aleia Brown, and I will be speaking about the exhibition We Gather at the Edge, Contemporary Quilts by Black Women that is currently on view at the Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C. through June 22nd, 2025. This presentation will unfold over 3 parts. First, I will cover a brief background of the Mazloomi collection and the collection's acquisition. I will then discuss my curatorial approach, and finally, I will walk through the themes and some of the quilts in the exhibition. Born in 1948 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Dr. Carolyn Mazloomi is a prolific artist, cultural preservationist, and the founder and director of the Women of Color Quilters Network. As she describes herself, she is an elder African American mother, wife, and grandmother born in the Jim Crow segregated South. And it is this approach that I wanted to honor and highlight in the exhibition. She makes work that explores the life worlds of, quote, the disenfranchised, dispossessed, and the outsiders, end quote. Her work guides us to a space where we can be in right relationship with one another or living in a way that centers mutual respect, harmony, and care. In 1985, she founded the Women of Color Quilters Network, or WCQN. She founded this organization, fulfilling the desire of isolated makers to connect with one another and continue Black textile traditions. Dr. Mazloomi created space for artists to gather with one another. On this slide, you will also see one of her quilts entitled Mother of Quilting. The quilt features Harriet Jacobs, an enslaved woman who created pictorial quilts that visualized everyday life and her beliefs. Her work is a transformative piece of material culture as it interprets a Black woman's life made by a Black woman. WCQN has worked to preserve and extend this legacy, creating story quilts or quilts of consciousness that engage history, memory, and social practice. In 2023, the Smithsonian American Art Museum acquired 34 quilts from the Mazloomi collection. Many of the quilters represented in this collection are members of the Women of Color Quilters Network. So now to the curatorial approach for this exhibition. And this is the curatorial statement. Here we are, gathered at the edge, shaping life from fiber and loam. We are just one of many generations choosing to live at the edge or further from there in the hinterlands. This is where quilt making, oral traditions, and memories all converge to make a usable past. You see, the edge, sharp and wild, is our center, and we never want to forget it. Where colonizers and enslavers saw untamed mangrove roots, we found freedom and refuge in generous ecosystems. After all, the Maroons saw the beauty and necessity in living interdependently with the swamps. It was not easy, though. Where there were calcified structures, we committed to seeing expanse and escape. Dwelling here, we recognize the creativity and lessons of our foremothers, blues women, soothsayers, and dreamers. We create in the name of everyone who chose to make an alternative to the prescribed anti-Black terror and gendered violence. We make quilts that serve as itinerant historic markers, honoring and documenting the impulse to seek freedom. With this statement and this quote by Toni Morrison, which says, I stood at the border, stood at the edge, and claimed it as central, and dared the rest of the world to move over to where I was. My goal was to bring the museum viewer into a new geography, one outside of the center. The thematic panels guide them through incredible artwork that happens outside of the central gaze. The panels interpreting the artwork themselves, center the artist's quilt, personal memory, and how it connects to the theme. I will now walk through the themes and show some of the quilts in the exhibit. So the first theme is we gather to collectively imagine new worlds. Betty Fort Smith used more than 4,000 squares of fabric, each folded into triangles and sewn onto a cloth to form concentric circles when she made this quilt over the course of 6 months during the COVID-19 pandemic. Fort Smith learned to make this style of quilt, known as the pinecone quilt, for its conical shape in 2004 from a 92-year-old quilter in Highland County, Florida, named Miss Sue. Similar styles have been preserved by the Gee's Bend quilting community and cooperatives like the Freedom Quilting Bee. The Freedom Quilting Bee was among a larger cohort of Black women-led craft cooperatives that emerged in the 1960s in the Black Belt, an agricultural region in Alabama and Mississippi, to address the precarity women there experienced. The cooperative encouraged women to build new economic relations that did not depend on jobs that would blacklist them when they participated in civil rights demonstrations. And here is a photo of it's an installation shot. This is the artist Betty Fort Smith and me. And it also gives a sense of the scale and the grandeur of the piece. The next theme is we gather to remember what we are told to forget. Born in Spartanburg, South Carolina, Ed Janetta Miller experienced the sit-in movement up close. An elder gave her newspaper clippings, which she arranged in an improvisational way akin to the quilting method of strip piecing, and then scanned and transferred to the quilt top. The clippings offer glimpses of the college students who became widely known as the Greensboro Four, who staged a sit-in at the segregated lunch counter of Woolworth's department store in Greensboro, North Carolina. Their efforts sparked a larger movement that reached 55 cities and 13 states, all listed on the right side of the quilt here. The sit-ins ultimately contributed to the desegregation of public spaces. And here it's a little blurry, but you can see some of the archival newspaper clippings that she transferred onto the quilt here. And again, the title of the Greensboro Four, the name of the student activists who participated in the sit-in movement. The next theme is we gather to see one another. George Floyd, who died after Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin kneeled on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds on May 25th, 2020, is featured here. The incident sparked the largest demonstrations for racial justice in American history. Floyd's last words, "I can't breathe," are appliqued in large letters. A silhouette of his mother, which you see here, looks on from the trees. Quilter Peggy Hartwell describes her quilt work as quilts of consciousness, documenting history so that we do not forget it. She also wrote a poem to accompany this quilt that is featured in the exhibit. Here's an installation shot of all of the quilts in the gallery that house the quilts in the theme we gather to see one another. I was particularly interested in grouping these quilts in a half moon shape so that visitors felt part of this looking practice that invited them to see in a communal and non-extractive way. I was also interested in encouraging people to see this as a form of portraiture. The next section of the exhibit is dedicated to two Dr. Mazloomi quilts and her work. Here with the family embraces, the sun extends across a continuum, offering light to many generations of family. The central family does not walk alone. Instead, ancestors support them from near and far. This quilt is part of Carolyn Mazloomi's Unity of Family series, her first exploration of working in Black and white. She credits Ohio printmaker Robert Harris for encouraging her to experiment with quilting techniques that mimicked printmaking. I Am My Brother's Keeper is the title of this quilt and is also an affirmation of interdependence and reciprocity. Mazloomi's signature spiral or sun, featured here, with its radiating bands of black and white, warms her two grandsons while they play outside. The trees, along with the borders that resemble Ghanaian visual symbols called Ndinkra, frame their time together. Adinkra symbols are connected to aphorisms and folk tales, offering a bridge between oral traditions and visual cultures. Even as they play, the older brother is looking out for the younger brother. The land and ancestral wisdom hold them together. The next theme is we gather to speak the truth. Here with this quilt, Katrina, Viola Burley-Leek conjures the physical and emotional intensity of Hurricane Katrina, the deadliest storm to strike the Gulf Coast of the United States since 1928. After making landfall, the storm quickly overwhelmed the levees in New Orleans and claimed more than 1,000 lives. Leak taps into the upheaval and dispossession that primarily Black and working class communities in New Orleans experienced during and after Katrina, with silhouetted figures and hand-painted faces expressing despair. She placed an American flag amidst the chaos, she says, to indicate the neglect by the federal government to act quickly on the plight of the citizens of New Orleans. The event laid bare environmental racism and the precarity of life at the edge of climate catastrophe. And here are some of the close-ups. You can really see the painterly qualities and the expressiveness in the faces. And also, as she mentioned in her artist statement, the American flag to indicate the neglect by the American government. The final theme is we gather to sojourn together. By this point in the exhibit, I want viewers to think about what it might mean for them to journey beyond the center and gather with the people they care about. What does it mean to live in an interdependent and convivial way? One of the provocations in the exhibition is, how do we form generative relationships with the people and other living beings around us rather than extractive ones? And that brings us to the final quilt by Lauren Austin, Day Garden. Ivy frames this quilt and dances with a woman's hair. She holds a pothos leaf. She looks admiringly at the potted plants before her. Lauren Austin remembers her grandfather's frustration at not being able to grow collard greens and okra in New York after he moved there from the South, which first taught him about soil. One of the lessons she shares is through the Adinkra symbol, unity and diversity, which you see here. Featured in the brown square on the far left side of the quilt, The symbol is an appreciation for interdependence in nature. The symbol represents two conjoined crocodiles whose embrace is key to their survival. She notes that Black communities have historically developed this type of relationship with nature, even as they experience the brunt of environmental racism and dispossession. And here's a close-up on the Adinkra symbol. And also in this photo, hopefully you can see kind of some of the sculptural qualities that are part of the plants. More close-ups to see the different elements of this quilt. And that's it. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I am deeply appreciative of the work in this collection and the artists who produced it and all of the lessons that it shares. I hope that the art inspires you to gather and think about the stakes and the promises in Black women gathering. I look forward to further discussion about the exhibition and the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aleia. The work in this exhibition it's just incredible, and it's really interesting to hear a curator's perspective as opposed to an artist's perspective or a collector. We have lots of time for Q&A today, so to all of you in the audience, please put your questions for Aleia in the Q&A box there, and I will read out as many as we have time for. I'm really interested in some of the behind the scenes nuts and bolts. How did the curation process start? Were you sent photographs? Did you see the quilts in person first? Can you take us through that process a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So one of the challenges with this project is that I am based in Greenville, North Carolina, and of course the gallery is in Washington, D.C., and also the storage is in Maryland. So initially I was sent photos of the quilts, and the photos were of great quality, but I find that it's still very difficult to capture some of the fine detail work that is happening in the quilts. So it was great to have the photos, but I was relieved when I actually got to see the quilts. And I guess this is also me championing you all to go see the quilts for yourself in person, because as much as you might appreciate them through the screen, there's so much more there that I can't see through the screen, but can see in person.
Yeah, and that reminds me, I wanted to say on April 25th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., there will be an artist open house at the Renwick at the show with some of the artists who are in the show. And then also on Wednesday, June 4th, from 12 to 1 p.m., there will be a gallery talk. So anytime is a great time to see the show. It's up until June 22nd, but those might be especially good days to visit. And I'm wondering, when you finally got to see the artwork in person, was there any particular piece that surprised you, or yeah, was there anything that you weren't expecting?
I don't know that I was super surprised. I guess I was enamored even more with the quilts to see a lot of the details and really the sculptural qualities that many of them choose. There's one particular quilt, "We Are All Warmed by the Same Sun," that I was just struck by the echo stitching in the quilt. I could kind of see it on the photographs, but it was just amazing to see it in person. And then also seeing the different shapes of the quilts and how they really push the form of quilting. I guess that's customary for modern and contemporary quilts, but it was really fascinating and exciting to see.
We have a couple of practical questions here. Karen would like to know, will this show travel to other cities? And Liz Ann is asking whether there's a catalog for the exhibition that might be available for purchase.
No, it's fascinating. A lot of people are asking about the show to travel, so perhaps the Renwick might be interested in traveling it because people are asking about it. But as of right now, there aren't plans to travel it, and there is not a catalog out yet of the quilts in the exhibition.
Mhm. But you can see them online on the Smithsonian's website. And I would check back there to see if they do put out a catalog or for future plans, if maybe it will travel. Joanne is asking how many quilts are in the exhibit, and Alka asked, and I was wondering about this too, if you could talk a little bit more about your layout thought process. Why were the quilts arranged the way they are?
Yes, there are 35 quilts in the exhibition, and it takes up the entire first floor of the Renwick. Many of the quilts are quite large, as you could see with the first quilt that I showed, the Pineberg quilt. It's like a queen size, or excuse me, a king size bed quilt. So we have some that are that large, but many of them, and I think the dimensions were included, take up a lot of space, which is really wonderful because it really captivates the eye and draws you in. Um, I was interested in arranging them in a way that provided space for gathering. So as you could see with the one installation shot, they were arranged in kind of like this half moon because I envisioned that a visitor, either by themselves or with other people, could kind of be immersed in the quilts and that experience. So that was a lot of my thought process in going into thinking about how to arrange them. And I was really fortunate to work with some really talented designers that figured out mathematically how to make that work. Um, and then within the themes, the quilts are organized a little by chronology of the subject matter that they address, and they also attempt to flow within the kind of aesthetic that they present. So it's like a layered approach to how they were arranged.
I love that half moon configuration with the nice seat there. I feel like it gives like an invitation to sit and reflect on the work instead of just moving through the exhibition quickly.
Absolutely. And yeah, I really wanted folks to slow down. I wanted people to take time outside of like the rushingness, to sit and be introspective and gather. The other thing that I will say is that we worked with a really talented lighting person. So I didn't intend for this, but the way that he lit the half circle, it's almost like the quilt shadows are dancing. So I thought that was a really cool element that I kind of saw the day that it was installed.
Yeah, I agree. The lighting in that photo looked just perfect. And Holly said in the chat, the half moon arrangement made me think of a group hug.
Yeah, that was I also was thinking about hugs too. So I'm glad that that resonated.
So Sarah is asking, how did you go about choosing and sourcing the work? So is this an exhibition of the full donation of Dr. Mazloomi's collection, or were these selected from a larger group?
This was the majority of the collection. So there were only two that were not part of it, and they did not fit. So what people are seeing is the majority of the collection, which is really exciting, because most of the time exhibitions, you don't get to see the entire breadth of the collection.
And I don't know if this is something that you were involved with at, when it happened, but do you know anything about how it came to be that the Smithsonian acquired these works and what that process was like?
I do not. I do know that Dr. Mazloomi has a relationship with the Renwick. I do know that several of the Women of Color Quilts people, the members in the Women of Color Quilters Network, have shown at the Renwick. And I do know that the Renwick was interested in making sure that WCQM was somehow represented in the collection. But that's my knowledge as far as like how it came to be.
Marianne is asking, what was the thought process of putting the pine cone quilt on the floor? So I think she's talking about that first quilt that you showed that's on the like platform.
Yeah, it's on a platform, and that's mostly for preservation reasons. It's over 4,000 pieces of fabric, so it's quite heavy. I forget exactly how much it weighs. So with that weight, to ensure that it does, like gravity doesn't pull it down, it's best to present it flat. Someone is saying I think it's over 40 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. So that was the thinking behind, like, it was for preservation reasons to make sure that it wasn't like being pulled down. Yes, it definitely could be a quilt that's on a bed. And it was unique in that way. I will say there's a range and diversity in aesthetics in the exhibition. And this is one of the quilts that does truly look like it could be placed on a bed, where there are other quilts that look more sculptural, have 3D elements, or just look like wall hangings, and some even paintings. So that's another really exciting thing about the exhibition, is to see like high quality and skilled work presented and executed in very different ways.
Yeah, it is a lot of really, really different quilts. And so I guess that leads me to a question of, when you're curating a show with so many different sort of aesthetics and styles, does that present challenges, or does that change your approach at all?
Well, for this show, I certainly appreciate the artistic integrity in their approach and views, but I also know that the Women of Color Cultures Network is interested in the story. So I hold both the visual and the story in mind. And for that reason, I found it less difficult than if there weren't like a through lines of a story. Um, so I chose to group them based on story. And the only time where I was like having to rearrange is if quilts weren't like talking to one another. That's what I called it. I wanted the quilts within the sections to look as if they were in conversation with one another, either by story or the color story, or the visual that they were presenting itself. So that was that was the part that took a little bit more fine tuning, since they look very different from one another.
We have a couple of questions here about the Adinkra symbols. Nan is asking, would you explain the Adinkra symbol again, please? And Carol asked whether you could name and spell the symbols, the Adinkra symbols that were found in those quilts that you presented.
Yes, and I'm just gonna try to share my screen again, because I think it might be helpful if I show them. So if you all can bear with me for a moment.
Just while you're doing that, someone asked me to repeat the reception dates and times, so I'll do that while you get that slide up. April 25th, there's an artist open house from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and June 4th from 12 to 1 p.m. there is a gallery talk with the artists.
Okay, thank you for that. So Adinkra symbols are visual symbols that also connect with aphorisms or sayings of virtue. And here is one in this quilt by Lauren Austin entitled Day Garden. It's in this brown quilt block here. and here it is up close. And it is called Unity and Diversity, and here is the spelling. And this symbol is an abstracted um, form of crocodiles who are all connected. So the triangles are their heads, and they're all connected together. And the whole purpose or message of this particular symbol is that they need one another to survive. And that connects with Lauren Austin's larger theme of respecting nature and viewing it as something that we need to survive. But her bigger message is that that has always been part of African American traditions, even when our relationships to nature have been hijacked through environmental racism and so on and so forth. Another thing that I should point out is that I'm not sure if you all can see this portrait here is representative of her grandfather, who I was mentioning was the one who taught her about gardening.
Kimberly asked, is there a relationship between that Adinkra symbol and churn dash quilt block?
I am not sure. I have not heard of that. If you could email me, I'd gladly do the research and find out, but I'm not aware of it immediately.
And Alea's email was on that slide. I think it's
At
AleiaMBrown@gmail.com.
gmail.com. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat again.
And Karen says it does look like the churn dash block. So I will be very curious to know if there is a connection or if it's just sort of serendipitous similarities in geometry. R. Johnson said,
I would probably lean towards it being serendipitous because these Adinkra symbols are they would predate those blocks, but I will double check.
great, thank you. This person is asking, they say that these quilts are all from 2000 to 2019. What do you see as the change or growth of contemporary quilting in the last, say, 5 years?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Yeah, so I'll first address the time period of the quilts. Many of these quilts were part of Women of Color Quilters Network exhibitions. So, for example, there was an exhibition called Quilting Conversations that walked through 400 years of African American history. There was another exhibition about essentially like Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. So you see some of those consistent themes within the exhibition because they were responding to similar calls. And I don't know, I guess the growth that I see is experimentation. It's difficult. It might have been difficult to see that from the slide presentation that I just gave, but having the knowledge of seeing um, the work of the quilters and how much they keep pushing their craft and pushing the form, I would say like the thing that I notice is experimentation in how they grow their work.
Jeannie is asking, what was the subject matter of the 2 quilts that did not make it into the exhibition?
One was a petunia. So it was like a cream background and like a sketch of a petunia. And the other was kind of like a landscape with a house and cats.
Catherine is asking if you could show the Katrina quilt again, the detail of the after effects of the hurricane.
Sure. 1 minute. So here is the full quilt. And then here is the close-up of the upper half of the quilt. I found that this particular window of the mother holding the baby and the anguish on her face was compelling to me. And then just seeing like some of the roofs of the houses blown off. But the hand painting here was something that really brought the emotion and the depth and gravity of what happened to life.
Yeah, it is just an arresting piece. It's amazing. I love the way that the windows sort of like explode out into the sky. I mean, okay, Jeannie says for the Adinkra symbol, could you please explain the reference to crocodiles?
I think it was just the animal that they chose to use. I'm not sure that it has any like specific meaning based on the animal. But it was just used to demonstrate like a circle and the connection of being or the wealth and connection and reliance on one another.
We have someone in the Q&A here, David, saying, here's some clarification on the churn dash. The Adinkra crocodile symbol is based on the proverb, the crocodile lives in water, yet breathes the air, symbolizing adaptability and flexibility. The quilter's churn dash is a pattern used in quilting, often associated with the quilter's churn, which is a traditional Ghanaian quilt. There is no direct relationship between the two symbols, but they both carry themes of adaptability and resilience. So thank you.
And I'd like to bring up something Dr. Myra Brown Green pointed out, that they are eating from the same stomach. So they're consuming, and feeling the blessing of eating from the same thing. So, and Dr. Myra Brown Green is also in the exhibition. And if you give me a moment, I can share the quilt that is her quilt that is in the exhibition. It wasn't part of the presentation, but I have it here.
Yeah, and for those of you who registered for this from our emails, that's the piece that you saw in our email listing. Yes, this one's just gorgeous.
This is in my Aquaba form. I'm not sure if the audience members have the ability to talk, but if so, I would like to invite Dr. Myra Brown Green to speak about her own quilt.
Oh, let's see. I can allow Myra to talk. Well, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi. You're doing a great job, Aleia. Thank you. Did you hear that?
Yes, yeah, thank you. It's good to hear
Oh, okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm at a conference, so I'm on my phone if you see that. Um, yeah, so the Aquaba symbol, and I don't know, so the spelling of Aquaba comes, one is an Adinkra symbol spelling, and I'm thinking, so, and then one is, so what that particular image is, it's an Aquaba doll, and it's a symbol of protection when a woman is pregnant. It was named after Akua, and there's a long history story behind that. But So it's spelled Akuabaa. Um, and so we get it mixed up sometimes with the AKWA, which means home. It's an Adinkra symbol, the Aquaba symbol, other Aquaba symbol. But this also, like Edgenetta Miller's quilt, it talks about those 4 students that started this whole journey with other students. So it wasn't just the 4 students, it was a number of other colleges that got involved. And the flying geese patterns represent, they're going in 4 directions. So it represents the 4 directions that those students came from or met up or dispersed from. And then the and then the other thing about this, and that's why when Aleia was mentioning going to see the work in person, I used embroidery floss to um, quilt the quilt. And I'm one of those quilters that buy thread first, and then I buy the fabric to go with the thread. And I saw this really fabulous thread, and I made and I quilted it, but it wouldn't fit through a needle. So I had to quilt the quilt from the back of the quilt. I had to put the thread in the bobbin, and I had to hand wind it on the bobbin. So I could only quilt maybe a square foot at a time, because only that much thread would fit on the bobbin. So so that's basically what the quilt is about. And even though it's free motion quilted, the Aquaba symbol is hand appliqued. And so that's basically what the quilt looks at. And of course, adding the black makes the color more vibrant. So anyway, so that's basically what it is. I hope that helps.
Absolutely. No, it's always wonderful to hear directly from the artist. And again, this was the leading image for the exhibition. So we were really thrilled to have it and for it to be the quilt that welcomes folks into this space.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks for the work that you've been doing. I know how challenging it can be to curate an exhibition, especially when you're working with a lot of different artists who are living, which is really beautiful too. And so, hearing their stories, and these are women that are not just quilters, but many of them are scholars, and or if they're retired, they have positions where they are very educated, and so it's really a special exhibition. And Dr. Carolyn Mazloomi did a phenomenal job collecting these works over the years, and Dr. Savage, who helped Savick, who helped choose many of these pieces, did a wonderful job as well. And Aleia, everybody's proud to have you help get it to the finish line. So thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So long.
I did want to bring up some other quilts that weren't part of the presentation, and also go into some of the background of the quilters. So as Dr. Myra Brown Green was saying, that many of the quilters are quilters, and they also have these really incredible, vibrant lives. And I think that's really symbolized in this quilt, the unbalanced scales of justice by the late Dr. Cleota Wilbekin, who practiced law for many, many years, and was a leader in her field of litigation. And I was just stunned at all of the different buttons that she used. That's a signature part of the work that she does. And also many of the quilts that she produced had something to do with law, but that was because of her legal background. So that's just to demonstrate how they have these really vibrant personal and professional lives, in addition to being quilters.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that piece. And I'll just say again that for our viewers, you can see the artwork on the Smithsonian's website. That link was in the chat, but you can also just search "We Gather at the Edge," and it will come right up. We have one more question here that says, are the quilts predominantly pieced or collaged surfaces?
I think it's a mix of both. Yeah, I don't think there's a predominance of one. There's collaged, pieced, appliqued. Some folks actually paint it on the surface of the quilt. And then as you saw with the quilt by Janetta Miller, she transferred, did a photo transfer of the archival newspaper clippings. So there truly is a diversity in how the visuals are presented.
Okay. We are getting towards the top of the hour. So do you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with for today?
Of course, please go visit the exhibition if you can to support the artists. They are all really wonderful and have been working to this point. So that's the best way to just see and understand their experience. Then, as you've mentioned before, many times, thank you about encouraging people to visit the website of the Smithsonian Renwick. Also, I will say if you search the artist names, each of them have started having artist pages on the website. So you'll be able to see more information about the artists in addition to their artwork that's in the exhibit, and some of them who also have other pieces in the collection. And then beyond that, truly just for folks to take the message of the exhibition and think about gathering and spending time with people.
That is a great thought to leave us on. And I will say in the chat, I saw there's a lot of you from Philadelphia, New York, Virginia. You are all in easy travel distance to see this work in person.
A great train ride away.
Yeah, exactly. So no excuses, go see it. With quilts, it's always so different in person. And Sarah says, where is it again? It is at the Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. Aleia, thank you so much for being here today. This has been fantastic.
I appreciate it.
And thank you to our audience for watching. We will be back again next week, same time, same place, for Yvette Molina, Art, Community, and Care, presented by the Tang Museum in partnership with Surface Design Association. As always, you can find all the details and our archive of almost 250 recordings at SAQA.com/textile talks. If you enjoyed our programming, we would love it if you would tell a friend about us, post about us on social media, or consider supporting our work financially with a donation at SAQA.com/TT support. Don't forget, viewers of Textile Talks get $20 off the first year of a new SAQA membership with code TALKS, that's TALKS. If you love art quilts, then we would love to have you join us. And remember to check out the Spotlight auction. Bidding opens in 4 minutes. I hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday. Thanks for watching.